Hello and happy Sunday. I'm about to make a little brunch for our Sunday, and one of my favorite things to make for brunch is tofu scramble. So I wanted to show you how to make that today. And if you're new to tofu, this is, I think, a great way to try it because a lot of people's aversion to tofu is kind of the rubbery, spongy texture that it can have when it's cubed or cooked in different ways. But when you scramble it, you really take a lot of the moisture out and break it down and brown it, and so it really changes the texture into something that a lot of people really enjoy. And in my opinion, I think it does a pretty good job of simulating scrambled eggs. So the first thing you'll want to do is take your block of tofu, and you might know that most tofu comes in a little plastic container with water surrounding it. So you'll want to open that up, drain out the water, and take your block of tofu out of that. And then pat it dry, and then you want to press it. And when you press it, you can just take paper towels. I like to use a dish towel, a few layers underneath, a few layers on top, and then put something heavy on top of that block of tofu. Some books or a heavy skillet works great, and let it sit for about 30 minutes to an hour. And this helps to press a lot of the moisture out of the block of tofu, and this will help it brown a lot easier. So once you've pressed your tofu, you can take it out of whatever you had it wrapped in, and you are ready to cook with it. And I'll just mention that there are lots of different types of tofu, and they're usually categorized by kind of their texture. So you'll see silken tofu or soft tofu, firm tofu, extra firm tofu, and you'll want to use a firm or an extra firm type for this recipe. And I'll also mention that if you have questions coming up in your minds about tofu, about soy and soy for your health and different health conditions, I have a whole article about soy over on my website that's linked in my bio. So you can go over there and get your questions answered. But one question about tofu in particular, what the heck is tofu, right? So it's made from soybeans, and it's essentially curdled soy milk. That's how we make tofu. And before you think that sounds gross, if you eat cheese, cheese is curdled milk. So it's very similar, a similar process to that. Okay, so we have our block of tofu ready to cook with. I'm gonna turn you so you can see it a little bit better. I have my skillet here heating over about medium-high, and I'm going to use a little bit of olive oil. I find that it really helps the tofu brown. If you do oil-free, then you can just omit this step, but make sure you're using a pan that cooks pretty well without oil. So I'm just gonna add a tiny drizzle of olive oil into our pan. And then with clean hands, you'll want to take your block of tofu and crumble it right into the pan. So you'll just kind of press it apart and crumble it right in. And you can do it pretty fine or in bigger chunks, kind of depends on what you prefer and how you're eating it. So our favorite way to eat this is with bagels. So we get bagels from a local bakery in the town that we live in, and spread those with avocado, kind of like avocado toast, and eat them with our tofu scramble. But you could do regular toast, you could do breakfast potatoes, beans and rice. You could serve it with tortillas and make breakfast tacos with it, or breakfast burritos. So there's lots of different ways to enjoy this. So I'll just take my wooden spoon, give that a little stir, and once feel like maybe the olive oil is kind of evenly dispersed, and you're just gonna let it sit until it starts to brown. And you know, one tip when we want things to brown in a pan, we have to let them sit, or else they'll never form that crispy crust, which is the whole purpose of browning something. So you'll want to let this sit long enough to start to brown, and when you feel like it might be browning, then just kind of move a little bit of it around to check to see if it's starting to brown. And if you see some browning, then go ahead and stir it up and let it sit again, so that other sides of whatever you're cooking can brown as well. So I'm going to let this brown, and I'll be back when we're ready to add our seasonings in. We are back with our very browned tofu. Show you up close here. And you can brown it as much as you like, but this is good for me. I'm just looking for it to be a little golden, a little crispy, and nice and dry. So now that it's browned, I went ahead and turned off the heat. And I want to do that because I'm about to add tamari into this, and tamari can actually burn. So we want the heat to be off for that. So now we're going to add our ingredients that are going to make it taste delicious. So we'll start with nutritional yeast, and we're just adding a tablespoon of that. Sprinkle that on. That's just gonna give it a nice little bit of a cheesy umami kind of flavor. And then we're adding our tamari. You can use soy sauce or tamari. And we're adding a tablespoon of that as well. You can hear that going into the warm pan. And then our spices. So we have turmeric, which is what makes the tofu scramble yellow, chili powder and smoked paprika, and then sea salt as well. And I have a half a teaspoon each of the turmeric, chili powder, and paprika, and then a fourth of a teaspoon of the sea salt. And I love to cook in blueprints, meaning you can swap out any of these spices if you want. This is gonna give it kind of a, you know, Southwest vibe, but you could add herbs, you could do Italian herbs or a French herb blend, whatever you like, but make sure you add that turmeric in there because that's what helps it look like eggs. So now that I've added those ingredients in, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a stir so it's all coated evenly. And you can eat it just as is, but I have some leftover grilled veggies from dinner last night that I'm gonna add in there today. So I have some grilled Brussels sprouts that are quartered, and then some grilled russet potatoes as well. So I'm gonna incorporate those in there, and we can eat it kind of like a hash alongside our bagels. So there you have it. Tofu scramble is as easy as that. If you have questions about soy and everything there, again, I have an article at my website that I think you'll find really helpful. This recipe for the basic tofu scramble is also linked above at my website as well. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday.